on Online for Authors, I am talking with Megan Mary, author of The Dream Haunters. Welcome, Megan.
Hi, Terry. Thanks for having me.
I am super excited to have you. Loved the book. But before we really dive in, why don't you tell readers what they're going to get when they begin and get into this book?
Okay, well, The Dream Haunters is book one of the Witches of Maple Hollow series. And it came out last October. And it is the beginnings of the story of Hannah Skye. And she is a young woman in search of meaning. And she receives a cryptic letter from her missing and eccentric Aunt Jewelia. And she's been having this recurring pumpkin patch dream that she just can't figure out what it means. And little does she know that it's going to lead her on a spiritual journey to an island of eternal autumn called Maple Hollow. And when she gets there, she discovers the mystical Skye Manor and her magical family legacy. So it's a story that involves a lot of different aspects of metaphysics, but it's magical realism, fantasy, and mystery mixed together. I call it a mysticy.
I love that.
And it's also fictional self-help because it's teaching while it's entertaining. And this one is set at Halloween, where the veil is thinnest between the worlds. And she has to unlock the mysteries with the help of wise villagers and a talking cat dream guide, so that she can dive into the dream dimension and really figure out the conundrum behind what has happened to her aunt.
Yeah, I found it really fascinating. It was interesting because there were times where she was having a dream. And the first time that happened, I didn't realize it was a dream until she woke up. And then it was like, oh, I missed that. So that was good. Why did you decide to do a metaphysical mystery?
Yes, that's a great question. So I really wanted to integrate all of the things that I'm fascinated by into the story. And as the series progresses, more and more different metaphysical elements come in. Mm-hmm. So the first book deals with dreams 100%. So there's 13 dreams in the book, and right. She really alternates between sleeping and waking just like we do.
Yep.
But there is also vortexes and sound frequencies and using crystals and divination, and there's a lot of other aspects. So if you're the kind of person that likes to wander around a metaphysical bookstore, this is the book for you.
I thought so too. In fact, in my review, I even said, if you like Halloween, you like magic, you like mystery, those are the kinds of things that are going to suck you right in. Yes. But also, those aren't typically the things that get me sucked in, but I still really love the book. So I think that it has a very nice crossover to anyone who just enjoys good, strong characters, that a great plot. We did a lot of things. I found it really, really very interesting. I'm curious where some of these ideas came from, like a magical island with a perpetual autumn.
Yes.
Where did that come from? As an author, I love hearing where do these ideas happen? And that's one that I've done a lot of reading, and I've never come across a perpetual autumn type place. So where did that come from?
It would be my dream place because I love fall. It is my favorite season. It doesn't last long enough. So I had to create a place where it was always that way. And
wonderful.
Yeah, it's my favorite time of year. So of course I would want it year round.
Yeah, of course. I mean, mine is summer. I love the summertime where it's sunshiny and I don't know, that can be out swimming and by the ocean and everything. So if I were going to have perpetual, that's where I would be. I get that.
Okay.
So the book is called Dream Haunters, and there are dream haunters in this book. Can you explain to our listeners what is a dream haunter, and is it someone that tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, so the concept behind the dream haunters is really to spread awareness about something called dream appreciation. So I work in the space of dream work, and I really wanted to make people appreciate their dreams and understand that they really hold meaning. And so what happens is if you don't do that, then you fall prey to these fictional bad guys called the dream
Dream
haunters,
haunters,
who
right?
can unknowingly trap you in your worst nightmares if you're not paying attention. And they have a little bit of a thing where during Mercury retrograde, which is when all of the series is set, they get a little bit of an advantage over us in this reality, and they get to materialize and wreak havoc. So
Yes, I found that very, very interesting. So I want to like delve into the dream aspect of it a little bit. Like you said, how many dreams were
there's
in this
13.
novel? 13. Of course there's 13. I should have known that.
Yep.
I should have
31
thought of that.
chapters.
Yes, I should have thought of that. But what I want to know is like, how do you go about? I know that this is something that you do dream analysis.
Yes.
How do you go about, or someone like me, how would I go about finding out real good information on dreams and what they mean? Because you can go look things up, and I can look up and find that it could mean this or this or this or this or this or this, and it's like everybody, nothing that I find will tell me the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
you can go on and on. So where do you get your information, and how do you do that for your book?
Yes. So this is also part of the theme of book 2, really.
Okay.
The book 2 is called The Dream Mirrors, and it starts to really delve into the method that I devised called the Dream Mirror Method. And so when I decided to come up with that, I had the same question in mind. I looked around at all the different approaches, and I used to use dream dictionaries, and I realized that they're not really giving us an accurate explanation of what it means to us. They're telling us what it might mean historically, mythologically, from an archetype perspective, from a psychology perspective, from a philosophy perspective, but not necessarily our own meaning. So what I wanted to do was devise a system that empowered the dreamer to pull through the threads from their subconscious and begin to understand their dreams in that very personal way, because dreams are stories that are comprised of our, what I call dream lexicon, our dream language, our summary of everything we've experienced, which could be in this life or past lives, if you believe in that, and everything is stored in that subconscious and that universal consciousness. So when we look at the dreams as metaphors and what those metaphorical representations mean to us on a very personal level, then we can start to understand what the hidden meaning is.
Right, right. Because in the story, she knows she's having this pumpkin dream. We see that very early on, so I'm not giving anything away, guys. And she does try to look up what pumpkins mean, and she becomes very frustrated because
Yes.
it's like, well, it could mean this and it could mean that, and these two don't even go together. And so she was like, I don't even know what all of this means.
Yes.
So when you devised what it meant, I'm assuming that you were using then your technique and using her and then coming up with, so someone else who had a pumpkin dream wouldn't necessarily have the same meaning behind it. Is that correct?
Exactly. And Morgan helps her in the beginning, Madam Morgan, to understand this concept. Initially, she gives her interpretation, but over time she begins to do it herself. And
Right.
particularly further into book 2, she really starts to pay more attention, and she's got her dream journal with her, and she's recording them, and she's reflecting upon them, and she's starting to see how they're guiding her, and all the different creatures that show up in her dreams to help her are really also guiding her from the beyond.
Right. So this is my own curiosity. And since I've got a dream analyst right here, I'm going to ask you, do all dreams have meanings, or are some of them just nonsense?
I think that they all do,
Do
actually.
you? Okay,
Yes.
because some of my dreams seem very nonsensical, is why I was asking. I mean,
Sure.
sometimes I wake up and I think, where did that come from? Like
Yes. And
that was very bizarre, and I don't can't even make any sense of it whatsoever. And so sometimes in my mind I think, it's just that was just my, I ate something bad before I went to bed.
which she does, right?
Yeah, right.
Yes. So yes, I mean, and it's not to say that those things don't influence us, because everything influences us, from the temperature of the room to the state of our bodies, to the state of our minds, to the
Right.
state of our, you know, situations. It does influence it. And there's been studies that show that the dreams that we have earlier in the night tend to be shorter and a little bit more content related to the events of the day. And that as the night goes on and the earlier it gets in the morning, the longer and more complex and sometimes the more epic those dreams can be.
Yeah, the ones that seem to go on and on and on and on. Yeah, I wake up some mornings and it's like, did I even sleep? Like, I feel like I've been, doing things all night long.
Yes.
So I'm curious, you have a lot of great characters in the book. Do you have a favorite?
That's a tough one. I feel like they are all facets of the diamond of me.
Yeah. I think it's hard to be an author and not put yourself into your characters.
Yeah, at least for a beginning author, that's definitely what happens. I don't know if you go on and after you've written 40 books, they're not you, but for me, it's very much, they're all very close to my heart. I do really love Madame Morgan. Her two cats are actually my husband and I's two cats. Okay. And so, and a lot of the cats in the story are real life cats. Some of them are not, but it's definitely something that is, like you said, it's hard to avoid putting your heart and soul into it, putting yourself into it.
I tell people that my characters are often who I am, who I was, maybe who I want to be. Sometimes it's like I'm projecting, like, boy, if I could be stronger, if I could be braver, I would be this, and that's how I would go out into the world. So I like that. Yeah. And it's hard for me to pick my favorites too. I don't know why I ask people favorite questions, because when people ask me, I'm like, I don't know.
I love Wixby. He's, he's so adorable. And he's the one that came to me in a dream. That was the whole inspiration for the book, was a dream about Wixby. So
isn't that crazy? I love how different inspirations come from different places. And it would make sense for you to have a dream that brought you to a book.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's really, really interesting. Are you a pantser or a plotter?
I'm a pantser.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah.
So am I.
100%.
So when you got started with this story, did you know how it was going to end?
No. Not till the end.
And how far into it were you before you knew?
All the way, probably. Yeah. Because I knew there had to be some kind of ending, but I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with book 3 too. Because I don't plan it out ahead of time, and I write in very small spurts every morning, and I don't like to limit myself. And I found that if I do try to plan it out, that I get stymied really, really bad.
So do I. I tell people that my imagination needs a lot of space to play.
Mm-hmm.
And when I create an outline, I have caged it up.
Yeah.
And then it just refuses to play. I just can't, and I also noticed that if I'm really stressed or I have a lot of other things going on, that play field gets very cluttered with other junk, and then I have trouble writing as well. So
true enough.
I got to have a nice big free space for it to go out there and play freely in.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What was the hardest part for you about writing this book? Because this was your first. So what was the hardest part of the whole process?
Writing it. And what I mean by that is revealing yourself within it, because it's pretty much, for me, like publishing my journal, right? And so you're putting your heart and soul into it. You're revealing your deepest, darkest thoughts. You're showing your vulnerable side. You're really putting yourself into that character, and you have to do it fearlessly in order for it to reach other people. You can't worry about what anybody is going to say, or whether you have to know that there's going to be people that aren't going to get it. And I think that was the hardest part, because it was like, no, but if this is the true, authentic me, everybody's going to love it. And it's like, no, that's not the case. It's not for everybody.
Case, right?
And
right.
That was a really
and
hard
it's
lesson.
a little scary. It's a little scary
Yes.
to let something like that into the world.
It is.
To say, okay, here's my deep inner things, and I'm going to lay it out there and let people trample on it.
Yes.
You know, and there's part of you that wants to go, no, we're not going to do that.
No, yes.
What did you think of the editing process?
Well, not having had any experience with it beforehand, it was also a learning process. So I guess I thought, and I guess it depends on what kind of editing you get and who you work with. But I think initially I thought I was going to be very involved in the process, and I didn't realize that I was just going to be passing it off, and that it was going to come back to me, and that was going to be it. And so that was kind of a new thing for me. And I had to let trust in the process, kind of the same thing with the audiobook. I have to just let the experts do their work, let the specialists do what they do. Right. And in the process, it was really a great learning for me, because I started to see my weak spots, things that I didn't even know I was supposed to be doing, like point of view switching, and that I like to spell things with the British spelling, and just a lot of weird little quirk things that I was kind of like, okay, now I can watch for this. Now I'm glad that I get that 1,000-foot view, right? That lets me see what I'm doing. So that was very beneficial.
I think having an editor that gets you is really important. And it's also really important for you to understand they do know what they're doing.
Yes.
And sometimes my editor will make a suggestion, and boy, I can feel myself wanting to fight it. And I have to think long and hard before every now and then I think it's okay to say, no, that just isn't right. But most of the time they do know what they're doing, and they see things that as an author you can't see, because you're in the middle of that book. You're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner with your characters. You know them inside and out. And it's hard to see when you've missed something. Or like you said, when you switch point of views, you don't even, in your mind, you're not doing it because you are all of those characters. And so it's really hard to see when you've been switching back and forth.
Yes, yes. And even though I have a bachelor's and a master's in English, I went and found somebody who had a PhD in English and who'd worked at Llewellyn Publications for, a decade, because I wanted somebody who was even better than me, that had all the experience in that mind, body, spirit space. And in addition to that, the tenacious detail that she has with the series is unbelievable. I mean, every time I send her another one, she goes back and reads the first one, and then she has a whole style guide that says, well, the parlor actually has beige floors and purple curtains, and now you're talking about that. And everything is very, very paid attention to. The detail, in this book, you say that the doorway is on the left, but here she's walking to the right. And can we adjust that? Just every little thing she noticed. So
that's really fabulous. That's something that I've not written a series before. And I've always thought that would be very difficult, that, I'm going along, and when I write a scene and I have a room look a certain way, it's that way in my mind while I'm writing it. But tomorrow it could be different in my head. And so the trying to keep it all straight. And then that's hard enough in one book, but you start doing this series, and like you said, the mansion is going to remain the mansion. The doors aren't going to move, right?
Yeah. So it has
Right.
to be consistent.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, what does everyone know and when do they know it? So you can't say something in book 2 that that person doesn't know in book 1, or if they already know it, you have to acknowledge that. You really have to pay attention to the whole timeline of things, and everything has to make perfect continuity sense.
Right. So it makes sense to me, I would think, that if you're an author who is going to write a series, that you would want to continue working with the same team of people.
Yes,
So that
absolutely.
they too know your books. Because if you switch editors in between, then that continuity will be lost.
Yes, and also the narrator, because the narrator
Right.
has created specific voices for every single
Exactly.
character, and the audience is expecting those characters to be the same and the
Right.
delivery to be the same. And so, yes, it really, it's important to
Once
have it all be the
once
same.
you find your team, you need to keep your team. Is
Yes.
what we're getting down to there.
Yes.
So you alluded to the fact that you write in little short bits every morning. Do you write every single morning? Is that just something you do? You get up and write, or do you have a
Yeah, weekdays.
weekdays? Okay. All
Yes.
right.
So every weekday morning, I try to get up, meditate, write, do all that. And because that's really the clearest time for me and the least hectic time.
Right.
And if I don't do it, then I'm really disappointed. And then I can never fit it back in as the day speeds on.
Yeah.
So,
Well, people talk a lot about having to create the space for writing, and that includes putting it on your calendar and saying, this is when I'm going to do it. Some people are daily writers, some people are not. But even if you're not a daily writer, to know when you're going to write, to have that put in the calendar, I'm going to write on Monday mornings, or I'm going to write, like, whenever that is, that you actually go ahead and open that space. You say you meditate. Do you meditate specifically for the writing purpose, or is that just a practice that you do and then you just go about your day?
it's just part of the spiritual practice.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I would say it probably does tie into the book, but it's not done on purpose.
Okay.
And I think that it's also important to go back to what you were saying about making the time for it. It's important to make the time for it because it's important to make yourself sit down to do it. Because a lot of times you think, well, I don't have anything to write today. I don't know what I'm going to write today, so I'm just going to skip it. And the magic of writing is that you don't need to know what it is, and you're almost not supposed to know what it is. You just have to show up.
Right.
And when you show up, it shows up. And that's like the co-creation. And that's the part that if you don't do it, that's when you fall into putting it off and procrastinating.
And you can put it off and put it off and put it off and put it off. I mean, because every day can feel like a day you don't have anything to say.
Yes.
Right.
And the meditating, it's good. It's a good practice, but it's also in between my dreaming and waking state. So I make sure that I'm acknowledging where I just was, what I was just dreaming, and many times that will then carry over into what I'm going to write.
Right. Yeah.
So the meditation is that space where I can allow that to come through, and I'm not putting things into my mind, consuming content and stuff like that. I'm just listening.
Well, I like that idea about not consuming content and things before writing, so that you just you're really opening up that space that I was talking about to allow that creativity to come out and be. That's very interesting. Do you have any other like writing rituals? Some people, they sit in a certain place every day, or they have certain things that help them to write. Do you have anything like that, or is it just meditation and off you go?
I do like to occasionally, and not all the time, but occasionally I will watch, or I will put on what they call like a ambiance video.
Yeah.
Which will either have AMSR, or it'll just be music, or it'll be background, but it'll have a visual. And, maybe I'm trying to really immerse myself in the dinner party. And so I want to watch a dinner party ambiance so I can hear the sounds and see the sights and really start to get that sensory experience, which is what I try to make sure that my writing always has the different sensory experiences so that it immerses the reader. And so if I'm have a storm scene where they're running out into the forest, which they do in many of the books, then I will put on a storm ambiance so that I'm hearing the thunder crashing and the lightning and everything. Yeah.
I love how you immerse yourself then in essentially the scene in whatever way that you can. I know for me, I have trouble trying to come up with like how to describe faces, like when you're surprised or when you're whatever. And so I'll often get a mirror and I'll think, okay, let's do surprise. And then I look at myself and I think, okay, what is happening here when I'm surprised, or what is happening, like, so that I can try to describe it, which is similar to what you're saying in that, you know, you immerse yourself in a dinner party so that you can then say, well, you know, you're hearing the clinking of silverware and you're hearing which is different than the glassware, which, you know, and you hear the people talking. Some people come across more than others. Others is a little rumble, all of those things that happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like the mirror that you're using. Yeah. Talk about the mirror because book 2 is all about mirrors.
All about mirrors. And I'm assuming that it's all about mirrors and that the mirrors that we saw in book 1 are going to come more into play. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because I noticed in book 1, it brought up mirrors. There are mirrors everywhere. We learned that very early. And then we don't really talk about them much. And so I wondered. And then when I saw the title to your next book, it was like, oh, I bet the mirrors are coming in there.
Yes. And I mean, it does play a little part in book 1, but I try to leave breadcrumbs, and there are things where my editor said, and when she got book 2, she said, oh, I'm glad you brought that up because I was wondering about that in book 1. So
Fantastic. So we've alluded to it a couple of times now. Let's talk a little bit about book 2, which is coming out soon, and a little bit about book 3 that you say you're in the middle of writing.
Yes. So book 2, it's Mercury retrograde again. And this time we're going 2 years into the future. So it is the September 9th, 2009. It's the night of the 999 portal. And they're having, we were just discussing, an exclusive dinner party at Skye Manor. But something goes terribly wrong, and dinner guests are disappearing faster than Hannah and Julia can search for clues. So there is a new sinister force at play, and there is a new visitor, Jezebel. She doesn't know what she's getting into. And there are more spirit guides that will be helping Hannah unravel this mystery. And so this one really combines the themes of duality and portals, mirrors, reflection, and illusion. But it still has the same celestial fall-themed fantasy elements. It's not Halloween yet. That'll be book 3. And it is also more on the theme of magic and self-discovery. So it's leaning a little bit more into the fantasy this time and a little bit more into the women's fiction, where we're really going to start talking about what it's like to live in this 3D reality and have a perception about our physical selves and the big questions about the nature of reality and what the metaphor of the mirror can teach us about.
Right. Oh, awesome. And then your third book, so your second book is going to be called
The Dream Mirrors.
The Dream Mirrors. Do you have a title for your third yet?
I do. Yes.
Are you willing to share it, or are you holding on to that for now?
I can let you know. I haven't made an official announcement, but you can have the exclusive. It's called The Dream Dimensions.
Ooh, that sounds great. That sounds wonderful. All right, guys, if you want to keep this conversation going, I want you to head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. Check out the post there. Take a listen to this podcast. Tell me something you liked or learned, and you will have the opportunity to win a free copy of The Dream Haunters, which is the first in this series. So if someone wanted to get up with you, talk with you a little bit about, what you do, how you write, a little bit more about dream analysis, that kind of thing, how do they catch up with you?
Yeah, so you can find me at meganmary.com, and there you can purchase books, signed copies. I also sell themed merchandise. I actually sell a dream journal that is a companion to the Dream Haunters, where you can record your dreams. I also have online courses that are on my dream decoding method. I do one-to-one virtual sessions with women doing the actual dream work. And I have my podcast, Women's Dream Enlightenment, where women come on and tell their stories of spiritual awakening and also share their dreams. Yeah. And in addition to that, you can find me at innerrealmspublishing.com, which is my publishing imprint, where I help other women indie authors bring their books to the world.
Fantastic. You are one busy lady, and I am so thankful that you took the time out to come and talk to me today. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.